Hey guys, my name's Mannequin and welcome back to EDM Pro Tips. So today's episode is on limiting it. And I don't mean put a limiter on a channel strip or something like that. What I actually mean is reduce the amount of plugins you use per channel strip. And there's actually a pretty good reason behind this, but first I want to talk about what we generally do. So generally, when you go through and you add a synthesizer, add a kick drum, or add some sort of sample or something, you'll go through and add an EQ, add a compressor, then add like maybe a chorus or tremolo or delay or something to kind of give it character, and you'll just kind of go through and you'll just start adding stuff. Maybe you'll do another EQ after you do some distortion, and then maybe you'll do like another compressor afterwards because it loses some dynamics after distortion. But in the end, you end up with let's say 6 plugins per channel strip, and that's not all that abnormal. I get around 6. Sometimes I'll only have like 1. Sometimes I'll have like 8, something like that. I don't know. We'll just say you get 6 plugins per channel strip when you're working on your project. So today's episode is kind of talking about challenging you actually to do only 3. So do 1 EQ, 1 compressor, and then 1 of something else. And then you could just like route it to a universal reverb or delay or something like that for extra things. But only do 3 actual plugins per channel strip. And the reason behind this is, like I was talking about, usually we do a lot more plugins on each track. So what we do is we EQ something and then we go through, change up some stuff, and then EQ it again. Most of the time we're EQing it again. It's because we didn't get the first EQ right. So, sometimes you actually are re-EQing it because of reasons that I've talked about before, like after you compress, sometimes you want to EQ it afterwards and not before, and other things you want to actually EQ before. So sometimes you actually do have the order thought out, and there's a reason you have 2 EQ plugins. But most of the time, the reason we EQ it a second time is because we didn't EQ it right the first time. So what this whole thing is basically challenging you to use these 3 plugins and maximize the potential of these 3 plugins. So 1 EQ, 1 compressor, and 1 of anything else. And then, just route whatever you want, like I said, to delay or reverb, so you could kind of get the track to mix together a little better. So essentially, what you're doing is you're focusing on using the tool to its full potential. And you're not just kind of using it in terms of, what you think what you're doing, and going through and trying to EQ it, and then later on trying to fix the EQ again by adding another one. Instead, just focus on learning the actual plugins. Because, when I first started, I watched a video and I learned what an EQ was. I watched another video and I learned a little bit more about what an EQ was, and I watched another video and it didn't help me at all because I already knew what an EQ was. And then I went into actually EQ something and it was terrible. I couldn't EQ for squat. So just because you know what an EQ is, what it does, and what it kind of sounds like, doesn't mean you actually really know what you're doing. So this is an exercise that'll let you really learn how to use the tools beyond just the knowledge of what the tools do. So EQ is one I talked about most. Compression is another one. It's very much so, you learn the tool, you kind of know what it's doing. It pretty much is like an automated volume thing. It adjust the volume as it increases. Okay, you know what it does, but do you know how to really use it, how to implement it, and how to, do you know what a setting is going to do before you actually change the setting? You know what it's going to sound like before and after you compress it. So that's the real challenge here. Getting into those plugins and actually learning not just what they are and what they do, but how they do it and how it sounds in the end. So that's really, it's a minimal approach so that you could really maximize the power from these tools. So that's just my suggestion for today. Like I said, I'll reiterate from the beginning, try just creating a new project and each track only use 3 plugins. You could just do 3 of something else. Like say you don't need to use a compressor on one. Then just do max it out at 3 plugins per channel strip. Now, if you have a low power computer, this will be great for you because you don't have to worry about the CPU overloads or anything like that. But if you have a more powerful computer like me, typically you're just like, just throw it on. It's not like it's going to change how much processing power I have. So 3 plugins per channel strip, and then feel free to route it to a delay or reverb, because delays and reverbs you pretty much have to use on like 90% of your tracks in a mix, otherwise it sounds really weird. So try that, give it a shot, see what happens, and you might be surprised how much you actually learn. You might not feel like you're learning anything, to be honest. You might go through and you just spend this entire thing, you make a pretty good mix, and you're like, okay, I didn't really feel like I learned anything from that, but trust me, you will learn something. And it'll just be it won't be more like a head knowledge thing. You won't actually like, know how to do an extra thing that you could use every single time. But it'll be more like in your subconscious, you'll get a more solid understanding of the tools and how they work and how to implement them and stuff like that. And it'll make it so next time you go into EQ something, it'll actually be a lot easier to EQ. And you'll get a lot better results, a lot faster too. So, because I remember when I first would EQ, it'd take me hours to EQ something, and in the end, it would just sound like the original would sometimes sound better than the EQ one. So, but now when I go through and I EQ something, I know, I'm like thinking in my head, how am I going to EQ this? Where exactly am I going to need a boost before I actually even load up the plugin? So, so that's really, this is a great exercise to build that skill. And, it takes a lot of time otherwise if you're just kind of doing your normal process with EQing and compression and stuff like that. It takes a long time to really build up those skills and get the solid foundation on knowing, what you're going to be doing if you just do it normally. But this is an exercise that lets you focus on solidifying that knowledge and solidifying that foundation so you really get a solid understanding of those tools and you know how to do the different things and you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Look forward to the next one. It'll be out Wednesday as usual. And I don't think I have any other news other than that. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.